This is the EWN Podcast Network.
Welcome to Late Boomers, our podcast guide to creating your third act with style, power, and impact. Hi, I'm Cathy Worthington.
And I'm Mary Elkins. Join us as we bring you conversations with successful entrepreneurs, entertainers, and people with vision who are making a difference in the world.
Everyone has a story, and we'll take you along for the ride on each interview, recounting the journey our guests have taken to get where they are, inspiring you to create your own path to success. Let's get started. Hello, I'm Cathy Worthington. Welcome to the Late Boomers podcast. Today we have as our guest Bob Martin, a former criminal lawyer who today is a professor of wellness and the Mindfulness Coordinator at Elon University.
And I'm Mary Elkins. Bob blends Taoist teachings with brain science and psychology to help people break free from limiting beliefs. He's a great example of a boomer who is pursuing goals in his third chapter. Welcome, Bob.
Yeah. Nice introduction. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Your journey includes studying under, and I hope I say this right, Master Hua Ching Ni, a 72nd generation Taoist master. And how has this experience shaped your understanding of spirituality and mindfulness? And how do you incorporate these teachings into your daily life?
Ooh, big question. Okay.
It is.
Well, let me take that a piece at a time. The first part was what? The first part was
you were studying under this great master.
Right.
And so how did this shape your understanding of spirituality and mindfulness?
Yeah. So I guess a little context would be helpful. My folks were immigrants. My dad was, just to give you a time frame, my dad was born in 1898.
Wow.
He escaped from the Bolshevik invasion of Hungary. He was Hungarian royalty. And of course, all the royals got wiped out by the Bolsheviks. My mom wound up, who he wound up with was Roma Gypsy. You know, everybody wiped out the Romas. So they came to kind of a conclusion that there really couldn't be a very merciful God that would allow all that to happen. I wouldn't say that we were atheists. I would say, to coin a term, I would say non-theists. It was just a conversation that we didn't have in the house. So fast forward, I grow up, much to my shopkeeper father's dismay, I become a lawyer.
Yes.
And later on, I have to tell you the story about when we opened a sub shop, and I went to see him about it. But and I became a lawyer. I became a DA. I worked under Janet Reno in the Miami District Attorney's Office during the Scarface, Miami Vice days of Miami.
Wow.
With the Cocaine Cowboys and the Mariel boat lift and all that. And we hit the mob up for a lot of money. And I went out and practiced, and the mob came to me, and they said that I had to be pretty good to do that. So they started sending me clients. And so all of a sudden I was whisked into this chrome and glass, party Miami Vice life. And probably doing a bunch of stuff I shouldn't have been doing. And my personal life was kind of fraying at the edges. So I was seeing a therapist. And one day I had a real decision to make about whether I was going to keep forging forward in spite of all of the signals that told me I couldn't do what I was doing and just keep punching through or not. And he picked up a little bag with coins in it and started throwing the coins and making calculations. And I'm thinking I'm paying this guy $65 an hour. to be my therapist, and he's some kind of charlatan throwing coins. And but finally, he came up with a number, and he opened up this big book to the chapter number, and he shows it to me. And the title of the chapter is Retreat.
Retreat.
Retreat. And I curse him out, because of the way he got there. And I leave, and I keep thinking of the word retreat, retreat. So I made this decision to kind of pull back from some of the crazy that I was doing. And I went to see him with my tail between my legs. You know what's cool about this podcast is that I can use all these boomer terms, and you know what I'm talking about.
We do.
Yeah. Yes. For sure. For sure.
So I went back to him with my tail between my legs, and I said, "What was that?" And he said, "Well, that was the I Ching." And I go, well, what's that? And he goes, "It's a Taoist practice." And I go, "What's Taoism?" And so turns out that my therapist was the English language not translator, the English language editor for Master Hua Ching Ni. And he was a 72nd. I mean, just think about that. I figured that out. It's about 1,400 years of passing a discipline down from father to son for 1,400 years. So he's a Taoist master, Tai Chi, Kung Fu, Qigong, and the Tao Te Ching, and all of these other Taoist practices. And so he starts explaining Taoism to me, and this made sense. It all made sense. They weren't asking me to believe in angels or seraphs or seraphim or mystical creatures. They just said, here's a manual, a handbook for how to live life. And considering where I was in my life at that point, I was kind of grasping, and I just grabbed onto it. And I studied under Master Ni for 8 years through George, and Master Ni came to Miami, and what an amazing human being this was. I mean, it's one of those people where you just feel their energy when you meet them. It's just they're stunning. I guess that would be the word, stunning.
Was there one teaching that you grasped onto first before you went into it further?
I was given the idea that life could be effortless and still be effective and efficient. I don't know if it was in quite those words, but that was the sum of it. And I was putting out a lot of effort, and I wasn't making much progress. So that seemed pretty attractive to me. And of course, the main book of Taoism is something called the Tao Te Ching. And the Ching means classical book, and Tao means the way, and Te means virtue. So the Tao Te Ching is the classical book of the way of virtue. And it's 81 single-page chapters. That's a manual for living. It teaches you about leadership. It teaches you about how to navigate the river of life.
81 single pages is very good for young people too, who are very tuned into Instagram and TikTok. But I have a question for you, because I am still amazed that you transitioned from your successful legal career to mindfulness advocacy. So you kind of touched on what made you make that transition, but talk about how it changed your perspective on justice and well-being.
Yeah. So, by this time, I was a defense attorney, and, a lot of people, over the years, a lot of people have asked me the question, how could you represent a rapist or a child abuser or, these horrible, horrible people? How can you represent them and go to battle for them? And any defense attorney that has a smidgen of a heart understands that we're not really doing it for the dirtbag. We're doing it because the police and the prosecutors, they enforce the law. but defense attorneys enforce the Constitution.
Yeah.
We are the ones that hold the police and the prosecutors accountable for doing it by the book and not violating our liberties. We're the only group of people that stand between the police power of the state and the individual.
Interesting.
Right. And everybody's required to have an advocate.
Right.
And
you think of how legal systems work in dictatorships. The prosecutor owns the defense bar, and it's a sham trial, and they put away their political. We're the people that stop that from happening.
Right.
And we take that role real seriously. So there's already a kind of a basis, a foundation for doing things for a good reason, even if we are representing pretty questionable people.
So a lot of people are accused of crimes they didn't commit too. So
they are.
They need you.
And the saddest part, I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but the saddest part of it all is that it's not so much that an innocent person's going to get convicted. That doesn't happen. It happens. And it's terrible when it happens, but it doesn't happen that often. 95% of the cases are plea bargains. People plead guilty and, and the case just goes through the system kind of like without, any question or any remarkable things. The ones that are sad, though, are the ones where somebody comes to you and they say, I really didn't do this. I really didn't steal that thing. And the evidence against them looks pretty good. Let's say somebody went into Walmart and they picked something up they were going to buy, and then they put it down somewhere in the store, deciding not to buy it. And the camera picks them up, picking it up and holding it close. And then they walk out of the store and get in their car, and then they're arrested. And you got this video proof that they picked it up and didn't pay for it. So it looks real bad. So, but they say, Mr. Martin, I didn't do it. So now I got to go to them and say, well, okay, we can go to trial, and there's probably a 75% chance we're going to win. But if you lose, you're going to go to jail for 2 years. On the other hand, you can take this plea to a misdemeanor and do 5 months of probation, but you have to plead guilty.
So it's really tough on them.
Do you want to take a 25% chance that you're going to do 2 years in prison?
So in many ways, you were already a mindfulness advocate at that time. I mean, you were because you were advocating for people in a very mindful way, and you've been a lawyer and a social worker, and you've had unique insights into the human condition because of that. So how do you integrate principles of resilience and positive psychology into your teaching and counseling?
Yeah. So when you practice Taoism, and then when I came to North Carolina, that's the whole story why I got here. But when I came to North Carolina, there aren't many Taoists here. So I started going to Buddhist temples and Buddhist teachings. And one of the things that you do in Buddhism is you practice the cultivation of kindness, loving kindness, generosity, compassion, wisdom. And you actually intentionally do practices that are designed to open your heart. And I will share with you that there is a very particular sensation that you feel when your heart opens.
Okay. Like to hear
Describe it.
Well, for everybody, it's kind of different. But for me, it feels like I've grown another arm that's extending from my chest, reaching out to touch everything. Touch people, touch animals, touch nature, touch trees. It's something that I feel opens up from my heart. It feels like almost another appendage for me.
Does it keep feeling like that all the time, or does it feel like that during your meditation?
It doesn't feel like that when I get angry. It doesn't feel like that when I'm hard. but generally, if I as I don't feel that visualization, but having felt it, it changes what you want in
Mm.
life, and it really comes down to wanting to ease the suffering of others. It's just that is what you want most in life. But I could ask y'all, if you wanted to have a new house. I mean, I'm not saying you would, but if somebody wanted to have a new house, they wouldn't be wanting to have that house all the time. I mean, it would be in the back of their mind, and when things came along that had to do with the house, they would attend to it, but they'd also go to work, and they'd also talk to their boss, and they'd also make dinner for their wives, and do all the other things in life. But there always is that I want to have that house. And so when you develop this sense of wanting to ease suffering, it's like that. It's always in the back of your consciousness.
And is
So
that
when
something that
opportunities,
Buddhism and Taoism have in common?
yes.
So there's quite a bit of
Yeah, and
overlap.
it's not about being a good person or making the world better or anything like that. It's about being happy.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
about it's a very selfish thing in a way, because it is the path to happiness. The Dalai Lama once said, if you want to be happy, practice compassion.
But that's what you're teaching people in your counseling services, right?
Well, I teach them the skills that get you there.
Oh, yeah, that's better.
You
You need a little work to get there.
I kind of call it the
Practice.
work ethic of happiness.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did a stint as an addictions counselor. So, how can mindfulness and meditation benefit individuals navigating addictions and obsessive thinking and unhealthy habits?
So when somebody is deep into addiction, it's not a very mindful thing. There are brain functions that are occurring and brain chemistry that's occurring that the mind cannot overcome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, basically, you have to sit on them. I had a friend who we pulled him out of shooting galleries in Harlem a couple of times, and we literally had to sit on him for a couple of weeks. Somebody had to stay with him all the time, and sometimes we literally had to sit on him.
Well, was he detoxing?
Yeah, he's detoxing, but he came up with every reason in the world to go out. I just need to get some fresh air. I just need to that. And all he really wanted was to go, cop. But then, once you're past that and you start to regain your mind, and it takes, a good 20, 30 days before you can start to reconsider. That's why the 12 steps, is really a wonderful program, not only for addiction, but 12 steps is a great life program. It really is. I mean, it just the steps are wonderful, and they are probably the best way for somebody to really work those steps. And it's a piece by piece process. But like for me in my own addiction, I went through that, and I worked the steps. But for me, there came a time when they weren't enough, and that's when the spirituality of Taoism and Buddhism, fulfilled the rest of my recovery.
Beautiful.
Interesting.
Beautiful. Well, now you're teaching business law and ethics at Elon University. So that's another switch. And that you're providing a platform for influencing future leaders, which I think is some of your intentions. So how do you incorporate mindfulness and ethical considerations into your curriculum?
Well, kids, 20-year-olds who, my father used to say that anybody under 30 that's not a liberal is a scoundrel. Because at 30, in the 20s, you're supposed to be idealistic and la la and tree hugging and the world is great and kumbaya. It's what you should be doing. And these kids who are 20 years old, I teach them in the business school because I'm teaching business law. So these are all folks whose mostly their parents are very wealthy and in business or in finance, and they're sending their kids to this private, expensive school. Mm-hmm. And they're taking business, and most of them, I'd say a good half of them would really rather be somewhere else.
But it's not the thing they picked.
Right. Yeah. And they're in this silo of wanting to have yachts and a penthouse and all of these trappings and everything else. So I hope that I can suggest to them that those aren't necessarily what gives you a happy life.
So that's interesting because you have to mix that into your curriculum so you can reach their souls, so to speak.
It's challenging.
Because they might want to deviate from mom and dad's plan. Mm-hmm. They might want to find something more meaningful to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but especially at 20, that's a tough one.
Do you have people coming to you and saying, because of you, I've switched what I'm doing?
We do, one of the projects that I do in that class is I start the beginning of the year. I say, we're going to form a company. And the first thing they have to do is decide if they're going to be a corporation or a limited liability company and make those decisions and fill out the paperwork to submit that to the Secretary of State. And of course, I'm the Secretary of State. And then they have to make a business plan, and then they have to make contracts and do all the legal stuff that you need to start a business. And some of them decide that they want to start a nonprofit.
Oh.
And those are the ones that are most enriching to me. I'd love to see, where they're going. But I have a chance. What I'm really excited about, though, is that this is my 7th year. I retired from lawyering in 2015. So this is my 7th year teaching at Elon. And of course, my passion, my love is teaching meditation. And I have been pushing and pushing. So a couple of years ago, there was this big movement called the Health Education University, the HEU. Mm-hmm. And it was a movement towards wellness on the university campus. So for the past couple of years, I've been pushing to be able to teach my meditation course. And
beautiful.
This year, I finally got it. They finally gave me the course.
So this is the first year of 7 that you've been able to teach it.
And teach meditation.
Offered, but it's taught completely separately from the business.
Yes, it's in the education school. It's in the school.
It really shows that your mindfulness teachings extend beyond academia. So talk about some of the most rewarding moments or transformations you've witnessed with your students and with other people through your mindfulness teachings, the changes in them.
So one of the young girls, young ladies, women, called 20, this female 20-something.
Yeah, we can call them women. We can call them women.
All right. Women.
Okay.
So she's in class, and we're about halfway through the semester, and the way that I teach it is we meet once a week, and I teach them a technique, and I give them an app that's proprietary. It's only my app, and they have all the guided meditations on that app, but it also has a log function. Mm-hmm. So after they do their meditation, they log it. They'll say something like, "Oh, this was a terrible meditation because I was so distracted. I couldn't keep my focus. I couldn't concentrate. Everything kept pulling me away, and I didn't remember to follow the instructions, and it was just terrible. And the dog was barking, and I got really mad, and then it was over."
Sounds like
Okay.
meditation.
Yeah,
Sounds like meditation, right?
it does to me
So
too.
yeah,
We're both
so
meditators.
I get to write back to them. No, it was a great meditation. Look at all the stuff you noticed.
Yeah.
You noticed that your face was flushed. You noticed that the distraction made you angry. You noticed what that felt like. You noticed that time became compressed, that all of a sudden it was over. And I go through all of the stuff they noticed. Look at all the data that you now have about yourself. So it was great, and then you get these. So every single day I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I give them feedback on their logs. So there's 17 students, so I answer 17 logs and they get the feedback. And right around 2 weeks of this, and they say, I really try to focus, but I couldn't, or I couldn't concentrate. And I keep pushing that. I said, it's not about focus. It's not about concentration. It is about your mind wandering. It's not about keeping the focus. It's about noticing that your mind wandering and coming back and starting over. That's where the healing happens. If your mind doesn't wander, you're not meditating. Everybody thinks meditating is about quieting the mind, about making it be still, and it's not. It's about watching the mind.
Oh.
And so when they finally get that, when they finally, I got it. I understand. And then the logs change. Oh, I noticed my mind went here, and I noticed I was thinking about that. And now I'm beginning to notice that I have a lot of negative thoughts. And now I'm beginning to notice that, there's this pattern. And when that starts to happen, it's just beautiful. So this one woman is not engaging. So I asked her to stay after class, and I said, Faith, this is not a required class. It's an elective. You chose to come here, and you know that it's a practice, just like going to the gym. You can't look at the machines. You have to get on them.
Well, we can do that too.
Work the machines. You know this, and yet I see that you're not engaging. So, what's that about? Man, the floodgates just opened up. I just always get in my own way. It seems like everything I want, I sabotage. I don't believe that I deserve it. I just don't think that, I don't know why I'm here. They never should have accepted me. And, it was like imposter complex to the 10th degree. I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it over and over and over. So, so we were learning the labeling thoughts technique. So I said, okay, so let me see. You had an unworthy thought. You had this thought. You had that thought. And then I started asking her, how do you feel? And where do you feel it? Oh, it's in my neck and in my cheek. And we started to deconstruct the panic that she was having into body sensations and thoughts. And then when she could kind of get the component pieces of what was driving her, she started to be able to manage it over the next couple of weeks. And by the end of the class, she came and she goes, I haven't panicked in the last week.
That's great, because she obviously had a very, very good mind-body connection where she could tell you it was in the cheek or in the neck, because a lot of people can't tell, or they can't even observe that. So already she was miles ahead. She just didn't know it. Yeah.
And that's why we do body scans.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had a great meditation teacher who did teach us that it was all about the mind going out wherever and back to and she was an Indian practitioner, originally taught in India. She was a white American woman teaching, but she had been taught to give mantras. So everybody had a mantra that she gave us. And that helps when you have that kind of meditation.
Yeah.
Because you can come back to the mantra. Yeah, different technique. And, but you have a big background in criminal defense and social work. So how do you approach the issues of justice and equity in today's society, especially in systemic challenges and marginalized communities? It's a deep one.
Yeah, big one.
So I was doing criminal work, and a lot of it, and so I know that what's her name, who was just sainted, Sister.
You're not talking about Janet Reno.
No, sainted.
Oh.
The nun from Calcutta.
No.
Yeah.
Not familiar.
We know who you're talking
Yes,
What are you
boomers,
talking about?
we do
Mother
this.
Teresa? You're talking
Mother
about
Teresa. Mother Teresa.
Oh, I didn't even know what we're discussing here.
Mother Teresa,
Okay.
She said, we can't fix the whole world, but we can fix our little corner of it. And so when all of this came together for me, I came up with a commitment that when a client came into my sphere of influence, that when he went out of that sphere of influence, he would be more inclined not to be in the revolving door and not to reoffend and to have an effect on his life. And I felt there were three things that I had to accomplish. One, he had to felt heard. He had to felt that I really wanted to know his story and that I really wanted to hear him and that he felt that he was heard. The second thing that I wanted to accomplish was that he felt that somebody had stood for him. And the third thing was that whatever happened to him, whether he went to prison or was placed on probation or his case was dismissed, that he understood why what was happening to him, even if it wasn't fair, even if it wasn't just, that he understand the dynamics that brought about the unfairness, or perhaps earlier things that he had done that resulted in the consequences. But he had a accurate idea of why what was happening to him. And I found that if I could accomplish those three things, that the chances that he would reoffend really went down. And even today, now it's 9 years after I stopped criminal law, I run into people on the street and they'll come up to me and they'll say, Mr. Martin, when you represented me, that was the last time I ever got in trouble.
Oh, that's powerful.
That's
and I think it
really
applies
powerful.
to all of life in a way.
That's so powerful.
To be heard and to have someone rooting for you and to understand when things happen, as long as you're not making them happen, although you might probably are, why they're happening. And I think that is really strong.
Yeah.
And talking about mindfulness, it's really gaining popularity over the years. So, what advice do you have for individuals who perhaps haven't even thought about it, but are suddenly thinking about it? And how do you navigate the challenges and the misconceptions about it? You touched on that a bit.
Well, there's two things that I kind of think brings it into focus. One is that we have a common expression that we always say. It's like, I had a thought. We always say, I had this thought. Well, I would ask, who is the I that had the thought? Because most of us live in our thoughts and we are our thoughts. If I see somebody and I don't think that the hair befits them or their clothes are appropriate, or I don't like the diction that they use, and I get a judgment about them, and I put them in a socioeconomic category, and I already know everything about them, and I do know, and that's my truth, because I'm in my thoughts. I am living my thoughts. I identify with my thoughts. But the truth of the matter is that I'm not in my thoughts. I am having these thoughts. And so the first ring to freedom, personal freedom, is to understand that I am not my thoughts.
Interesting.
I am the creator of my thoughts. And therefore, the possibilities of designing a life where I actually have a say in the matter of my own life, that is a very real possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I love
like
it
that.
when the Irish say, happiness is upon me.
Mm-hmm.
Sadness is upon me. Because there's this innate recognition that that's something that I'm having at the moment, but it's not me.
Mm-hmm.
It's the state that I'm engaged in at the moment, and it will pass. This is knowing that happiness may be upon me, but it may not be upon me tomorrow. It's upon me at the moment. And that is a very freeing understanding because of two reasons. One is that when you can step back from your thoughts and watch them, then you can evaluate whether that thought is helpful or not helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And if you decide that it's not helpful, maybe the next time it comes up, you'll do something about it. Or the next time, or the next time, or the next time.
Yeah.
But at some point,
or decide
the
to
mindset.
decide to
Yeah,
think
go ahead.
about it. Decide to think about happy thoughts
Yeah.
instead.
Yeah.
That's where the
Like
meditation
choosing.
comes in, right? Watching
Choosing.
it.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, choosing. Yeah, and eventually you clean out, the attic a little bit, and that makes for more. If you go and you clean out your attic and you kind of organize it, it becomes more spacious.
Mm-hmm.
Your mind is
Especially
the
if you get
same.
rid of a lot of stuff.
Get rid of the cobwebs, and you kind of organize it a little bit,
Right.
and then that spaciousness that people are talking about, that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
It doesn't
In
come
all
from
things.
quieting. Yeah.
I know.
In all things.
Because I've been listening to a podcast where they're discussing decluttering and how to do it, because not necessarily to make your house look better, although it does. It's to clear your mind.
Absolutely.
It has such a powerful, it's so powerful to clear your mind. So I'm getting into that now a little bit more.
I need to do that too. My attic is very filled with cobwebs.
Yeah. But looking ahead, Bob, what are your aspirations for the future of mindfulness education and advocacy, both within academia and in broader society?
When people first started jogging, everybody looked at them like they were really weird. Like, why are you running? Why are you doing that?
I can remember when nobody ran.
Right. And now, that's just another form of wellness. Jogging. I jog. So I hope that mindfulness kind of follows that path. And then everybody thinks it's a little bit weird today, but over time it becomes it. I teach. Sometimes I have this credible privilege of dealing with some of the kids in the foster system, or dealing with kids coming out of the juvenile justice system. And it's the same practice. They get the app, they listen to the guidance, and then they tap in their little logs. And every day I give them feedback. But I get to watch I get to get inside their mind. Can you believe how cool this is? I get to get inside their minds and watch how it's all working in there. It's like so cool. And one time, a 12-year-old was logged that he did. I said, I don't want to log about my 10 minutes. I want to tell you about what happened today. And he said, I was out on the playground and Johnny pushed me down, and I wanted to get back up and I hit him. But I remembered about my breathing. So I went over to the chair, to the bench, and I sat down and I breathed. And then I thought that if I go and if I hit him back, then we'll never be friends. And I wanted to be his friend.
Oh.
And
that's where you know you've made an impact.
That's what meditation can do.
Mm-hmm.
And if we would integrate meditation, everybody uses that word kind of like for trying to like go into a daze and watching the ocean or something. But if we really use that kind of contemplative, we taught that contemplative meditation, we taught mind skills to, kindergarten, first, second, third graders, we would change the world in one generation.
Mm-hmm.
In one generation, the world would be different.
I totally agree with you. I think that's
I wish our world leaders would listen to you.
It's such a good point.
Yeah. Any other advice for today for our boomers?
Yeah. So this really esteemed leader came to a Buddhist temple nearby, and I really wanted to hear him, so I went down to listen to him. And of course, he's teaching loving kindness and compassion, and kind of like the Buddhist thing. And I'm listening to it, and eventually I just had to raise my hand. I was getting a little antsy, and I'm just, what? He says, yes, sir, what? And I said, teacher, for 4,000 years, people have been going around teaching these teachings, and there's always been a small band of people that follow it, and the rest of the world's running around with swords and torches. So, why do we think it's going to be any different? I mean, really. And he says, irrelevant question.
What?
And everybody, he says, irrelevant question. I go, what? I thought, what? Why? And he goes, well, no matter what I answer, are you going to wake up and be any different than the good work you're doing today? I go, well, no. He goes, so, irrelevant question. And everybody cracked up laughing. He goes, no, here's the answer. And this is what I want to. This is
your advice.
You never know when the tipping point is going to come. You never know. So you get up the next day and you go do your thing and you keep up and you take care of what's on your plate today and you do the best that you can with it and you make the little differences that you can and you wake up tomorrow and you do the same thing and you wake up the next day and you do the same thing because you never know when the tipping point's going to come.
That makes total sense, and I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bob. Our guest today on Late Boomers has been Bob Martin, professor of wellness and mindfulness and former defense attorney. You can contact Bob at awiseandhappylife.com. Is that also where they can get your app?
They can get, the app comes with the course. Okay. The app comes with the course, but there's 56 gigabytes of resources that they can download for free there. Most important though, there is a 40-page primer or primer. Introductory book to meditation. It's called Is Meditation for Me? What it is, what it's not, how to do it, and how to get started. And it's about 40 pages. It answers all the questions. It gives a basic instruction, and it points you to resources. And it's a free ebook download, and there's no obligations. I just put it together because everybody asks me the same questions all the time.
And that's something that our audience could download by going to your website. So that's AWISE, AWISE, happylife.com.
A wise and happy life.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Tune in next week, listeners, when we will be meeting Richard Bangs, great world explorer, who will advise all of us boomers on travel we should not miss. And please subscribe to our Late Boomers podcast on YouTube and take us along in the car and on walks on your favorite audio platform. Let us know what gets you inspired. We are on Instagram at I am Cathy Worthington and at I am Mary Elkins and at Late Boomers. Please share the Late Boomers podcast info with your friends who may not yet be listening to podcasts. Spread the word. Thanks again, Bob.
Thank you. And thank you for the work that you do in giving a platform to people like me. It really makes a difference.
Beautiful.
It's important.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on Late Boomers, the podcast that is your guide to creating a third act with style, power, and impact. Please visit our website and get in touch with us at lateboomers.biz. If you would like to listen to or download other episodes of Late Boomers, go to ewnpodcastnetwork.com.
This podcast is also available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and most other major podcast sites. We hope you make use of the wisdom you've gained here and that you enjoy a successful third act with your own style, power, and impact.